staff, the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the City of Paris for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2021. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. On behalf of the City Council, we wish to express our appreciation to Finance Director Gene Anderson and his staff for this honored award. Mr. Anderson, if you will, and Mr. Path, if you will meet Mayor Pro Tem Hughes and me down front, we will present you with this award.
Trying to get that table from not being in there. Thank you.
Thank you. The Monday, February 27th, 2023 regular meeting of the Paris City Council is hereby called to order at 5:30 p.m. For the purpose of this meeting, there is a quorum of the council present. Item number 2, Mr. Gene Anderson will deliver the invocation, and item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance, will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Hughes. Please rise.
May we pray? Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for all that you do for us, for your divine intervention, Father, for deliverance, Father, when we are in times of trouble. Father, we pray for our nation, for our national leaders, our state leaders, as well as our local leaders that are here tonight, that you would guide and direct them in all things. We just pray, Father, that we would do all for your glory and honor, and that our city might be a better place. For we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information, to an existing policy or claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. If necessary, the City Council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any item on this agenda. The public forum is now open. If there's anyone who wishes to speak to the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Ladies and gentlemen of City Council of Paris, Texas, my name is William Cates Jr. This is my wife, Sandy. About 8 months ago, we started the process of purchasing a home over on 21st Street in Paris. When we moved here or began to work, and it took about 4 months to get our VA loan finally closed out, we still like a little bit to getting into our home. But we had a concern when we moved in, and so we contacted our city council person, and then she referred us to Mr. Vine, which came out to our home, and we went over some issues that we was having. We love it here. It's really convenient. Where we're at is convenient. Everything we need is right within a couple of miles of our address. But Mr. Vine asked us if we would come and comment on something that we noticed when we first came into the city. I love your one-way streets, how they stop it in and pick up later. But that's something we could deal with. That we love it here. But our concern when we came in was as we drove around looking the city over, we noticed the sanitation problem. We were not used to what we saw. We moved here from Whitesboro, Texas, just down the road of Fur Peace, as they say. But we noticed the trash, the sanitation, and I'll call it trash, because there was no orderly manner, it appeared to us, no trash cans. I mean, there was trash cans of various sizes, but the trash was just sitting out and kind of unsightly. And so that was our concern, and that's one thing that we talked to Mr. Ryan about, and he assured us that the city is in the process of trying to get that problem fixed. And so let me just say this, so that's our main concern, is the sanitation. Hope the city can get it worked out. But let me say this, we love it here. We've been here 8 months, and we just absolutely love it. The people is great. We're just honored that someone asked us to come and speak before you all. So we love this city, but you need to do something about the sanitation problem. Okay, that's it.
Animals there in our neighborhood are getting into it, and I get out there 2 or 3 times a week and pick up litter all up and down the side of the street, and but we like it here. But other than that, everything else is good.
Well, we're glad you're here, and we appreciate you bringing your concerns to us.
Thank you so much.
So anyway, we thank you for allowing us to come and speak to you for a few minutes. So,
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Uh-huh.
Good evening. I want to thank the council and the mayor for the opportunity to come and speak to you. I wanted to talk about item 23, I believe it is.
Mr. Fuston, please state your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You did tell me that. John Fuston, Fuston, 4010 Miranda Drive in Morningside. And as I was saying, I like to address item 23. Is that the privatization of trash pickup or trash handling? I'm not really against privatization. I'm not against city operating. I want the best for the buck. And I'm a little concerned about it. I know it's a big operation. I'm going to guess that we probably have close to a half a dozen trucks, I would imagine. If we privatize, what happens to the trucks? When the contract's up and it wasn't a good deal and we want to go back, where do we find good trucks? Because I know that the cost is immense for that equipment. So I've heard that we're talking about privatization, but I haven't heard anything about it. So that's what I'm trying to look for, is what is the best way and what's the safeguards so that we don't get into privatization and then 6 months later, we're into something else. So I thank you for letting me come and talk to you. But I know it's a difficult decision, and some way, somehow, you've got to get the facts out, and facts that will stay with us for a while. We don't want to do something and 6 months later it was changed again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Fuston.
Good evening. My name's Deborah Garrett. I live at 6220 Farm Road 905 in Paris. And I'm here, and I'm not sure this is the right place, but I'm here about the Lamar County Humane Association. I understand it's run by volunteers, and I know there's a lack of money there. But I adopted an animal in August who was very sick. Luckily, he survived. Decided to get him a brother in January. I got a new puppy January 6th, who's come down with distemper, which also the first dog, they've closed the pound down for 2 weeks a month, I'm not sure, right after I adopted my dog in August. So there's a big problem with distemper in all of Texas, but there's got to be something done to, protect the animals and, the people that adopt them, that love them real fast. I just hope there's some money somewhere that can help those volunteers take a better cleanliness or better vetting of the animals when they come in so they don't all get sick and get put down. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't normally do this, so bear with me. I'm like Mr. Fuston. I'm interested in number 23. My name's Pete Dalrymple. I live in Morningside, 620 Southeast 39th Street. I've worked in the medical field for quite a few years, and quite truthfully, every time we privatized anything, whether it was surgical greens or instruments or anything else, it was screwed up. When the hospital took care of it, we always knew we were going to get what we had. Once you start outsourcing, everybody I know of that has privatized trash pickup and stuff, their bills always change, and they're going to do this, and they couldn't come on Thursday. We have a very good system here, and we like the people that work. I'm not trying to change your minds. I'm just saying you need to think about it. Like he said about the vehicles, you've got them. I hope we can keep the system we have, because once you let that get away from you, you have no control over it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mayor, members of council, my name is Larry Shank. I reside at 3765 Dawn Drive. I thank you for the opportunity to speak again on the topic I spoke to you, I think, at the last council meeting when this issue was considered, and that's about the privatization of the trash. It's hard to follow Mr. Dalrymple. He said it pretty succinctly. I'm concerned because I know the community didn't want it last time, I think for good reasons. I'm concerned about a long-term contract, and you lose your authority over taking care of the rates. You lose your authority over regulating that issue, that activity. I'm just concerned in general about the concept of privatization. And I've spoken to you before, as I said. I'm also, I think your city manager made a very interesting comment, a good one. First of all, it says a rate adjustment has not been made in over a decade. Well, maybe it's time. But I'd prefer to have a rate adjustment than to have a private hauler. Secondly, since these changes, we've stabilized our operation. I think that's the good news that you were looking for when you went from 2 to 1 pickup a week. So the operation is stabilized, which was part of the justification, if I understand it, to do it in the first place. I'd really like to know why we want to do it. I stayed for the full meeting last time. I still don't know. I still don't have a feeling for why. And finally, I would make a suggestion. If in fact this is the way to go, and I'm concerned about the $40,000, because I know you need police officers, and that's where I'd rather see it go. But nonetheless, if in fact you're going to do that, I suggest to you your possible contractor made the point that you can do it either residential or residential and commercial, and there are different monetary aspects of that. What's wrong with just doing it commercial and seeing if that works? If you must do it, see how that works before you sell all of your equipment, before you let all of your employees go, before you've turned the corner and can't go back. Because believe me, I've been down that road with other cities, and you can't go back. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shank. Anyone else wishing to speak?
You know, the reason I love Paris is it's great for people my
Please
age.
state your name and address.
Judith Malone,
I know you, Judy, but
1975 East Cherry Street in Paris. And I agree with him. Everything that an old person like me needs is within 5 minutes. My doctor, my church, my water bill payment, you know, whatever. And it's a good environment for us to build a city in that manner. And I'm coming because I think we are all facing a severe problem in the northeast part of Texas, of the city, in which the housing that was built after World War II on Tudor and Booth and Cherry Street and Price Street has deteriorated. There's a lot of it that's falling down. It needs to be torn down. There's still some real cute little houses that have been well maintained, and they are still livable for very low price. My house is paid for. Those little houses are paid for. So it's important that we have progress. And so within the Northeast Quadrant, I just did a little survey of my own. I looked at the topographical maps and I looked at all the information that goes with water drainage in that area. And I was barely cognizant of what they're talking about. So I got out of my car and I drove around and I looked at the things that were going on that could cause a great deal of water pressure on our area, and a great need for water retention to keep certain areas from flowing over onto our neighbors. Now, we can look at data and research all we want to, but until we get out in our pickup and we drive around and we look and see exactly what's going on, there are many houses that need torn down. There are many that are vacant lots. A great opportunity for builders to put decent housing, which we need a whole lot of, into those slots. But the big problem in that part of town is that every time a new slate of duplexes or apartments or businesses are built, they pour a lot of concrete and they cover up a lot of absorption dirt. They take down a lot of trees that soaked up a lot of water. And over the years, it has gotten worse and worse until now. Those 4 streets that I mentioned, which are the drainers off of 19th. 19th is high. It goes from Clarksville to the Loop.
Ms. Malone?
Yeah.
Your 2 minutes are up. Just take a few more seconds.
I will,
and
because
wind
the
down.
point is, she knows I can't do that. I'm teasing. But the point is, by asking our engineering department to look and talk to the individuals that are in that vicinity and are adjusted by that, and to look at our observations is very important. So I would like for us to be, whomever would like to be there, a meeting with the engineering department or a point of agenda for the next meeting of the city council. And thank you. I'm sorry to run over.
That's okay. Thank you, Ms. Malone. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing, oh.
My name is Donald Ray Walker. I live in Brookston, Texas, 340 County Road 32050. I'm here to try to let y'all understand what a nonprofit organization is. A nonprofit organization is an organization that does not make profit. And when you don't make profit, you don't have any money. So you have to do the best you can with what you do get. Now, I know every one of you guys have a hard time understanding, because probably none of you has been in a nonprofit organization business. But it is very difficult, because you're dealing with a bunch of criminals. You're dealing with people that's come out of probation. You're trying to give them a start. I call it a step up. I'd like to say this, and then I'll get out of your hair. I've had mental anguish for quite some time. It's one thing hard to have a tragedy that happens in your place, but it's another thing when you didn't have nothing to do with it, and that you met all the criteria for that place. But then every time you see these certain people, they want to remind you, well, we don't want the same thing to happen. Well, I'm a minister, and I love those people, and the same as I love y'all. That's my job, to be a brother to you the best that I can and try to teach you what I can. And what I'm trying to do now is tell you, please consider our recycling business. I'm not going to be able to do it anymore because y'all have taken my volunteers away from me. And my business, or that center down there, met every criteria for having volunteers. Thank you, and I hope you all have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Anyone else?
My name is Edwin Pickle. I live at 220 Johnson Woods Drive. I have three things I want to talk about real quick in 2 minutes. First, I want to thank the City Council and the city for participating in the e-cycle and tree giveaway this weekend. Very successful. Gave away 900 trees in an hour and a half, and then took a whole bunch of computers and monitors and all that stuff in. So everybody got a chance to get rid of a lot of that junk. Second thing, privatization of trash. If you'll look back, I was the driving force to push privatization the last time it came up for a vote. A couple of things I've learned since then is that even it doesn't matter if you save everybody in town a couple of dollars a month, they don't care. Most of them, it's no big deal. So if you're going to do it, do the best way you can as far as to save the people of the city a sizable amount of money. Also look at the thing I didn't think about at that last time was the commercial side of it. I would encourage you to look at the commercial side, because while I have a residential service through the city, I also have commercial through another entity here. The commercial is 10 times better than the residential as far as being able to depend on when it's going to be picked up and when it's not. As my councilman knows, we get picked up on Thursday or Friday or Saturday, but we get it picked up at least most of the time once a week. So I do want you to please think about that, and if you've got any questions about what we looked at last time, look at the city council minutes or give me a call. I'll be more than happy to help you. The third thing is the flooding situation that was discussed. It is a major problem on Lamar Avenue and 24th north of that. And so if y'all can do something to give some of these businesses some assistance. I've been asked, what do I do when it floods? I feel sorry for everybody over there because I've never flooded. I've watched it come up to the curb and prayed, Lord, please don't let it come in, and it never has. But it is a major problem, even just across the street from me and farther north. So I would ask that y'all address that, especially as we're going to be adding more apartments and duplexes in that area. When we did Home Depot, we had retention ponds put in to keep that from happening. And I know there's some available properties that could perhaps be looked at. So I would just urge y'all to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pickle. Anyone else? Seeing none? Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Betty Vanderver. I live at 2720 Culbertson Street.
Can you
That's
pull the
block-
mic down, please?
That's the block between Collegiate and 26th Street. Bought my home in 1976. I retired in 2015, and retirement has not been easy. April 2016, I was flooded. May of 2016, I was flooded. August of 2017, I was flooded. June of 2018, I'm flooded. And again, April of 2022, I've been flooded. I've been flooded so many times that I can't get my house repaired. I have to live on concrete floors. The city knows about this. I've talked to the city. I have been here before. I have talked with zoning and planning. You can't keep adding, going out into these residential areas that's already built and throw in an apartment complex, throw in a bank, throw in another sidewalk for Crockett School that drains right down Culbertson Street. There's no place for the water to go because you've made no provision. Now then, my yard is being eaten away. We've got holes this big on the side by the drainage ditch. It's taken my fence down. The back gate is gone. This is not right, and I should not have to live this way. Consider it when you are going into the areas.
Thank you, ma'am, for speaking.
Hi. My name is Dean Emmett. I live at 1025 13th Street Southeast. I moved here in September from Garland, and I have a concern about rezoning lots in my neighborhood, 2 lots down, to a medium density. I don't need the noise. I've already got mud in my front yard and truck tracks from your trucks running through there when it's wet because the drainage isn't good either. Also, we have some homes over there. I see you got a code enforcement, but I haven't seen any code enforcement. I've been there since September. There's a lot on the corner owned by a investment firm, and it's been that way since I moved in there in the beginning of September, and there's trash and toys and high grass and tree limbs, and nothing's being done about it. And I'm really concerned. I moved out here because it's nice and quiet. But if we go and start putting medium density housing in our neighborhoods, they can build apartments or whatever, it's going to get real noisy. And I'm not real happy about it because I just moved here. And I moved out here because it's nice, convenient, quiet. And now I see I got a letter here 3 weeks ago that somebody's trying to change the zone to 2 lots up to medium density. And I don't like it. Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome to Paris. We're glad you're here.
My name's Brandon Del Toro. I'm at 2333 Lamar Avenue. My concern is, as well as with the drainage, this has been an ongoing problem. I'm like Ms. Vandiver. I was flooded in 2016, April 2016, again in May 2016, and again this last year in April of 2022. And my concern is that this ongoing problem is not being addressed. We continually add more housing units and commercial development that is taking away, or I should maybe better say, increasing the amount of hard concrete that is not allowing the water to be absorbed. So it's increasing the rate at which the water is flowing through the various tributaries. There was a study done a few years ago that addressed this, and no action was taken on it. So I'm asking the council to, if they are new, which a large majority of you are, and not familiar with this, please, we can't continue to increase the amount of concrete and expect that we're not going to flood out new areas as we develop new areas at the same time. I'm all for the growth. I'm all for the development. I love the fact that it's being done, but it has to be done in a prudent manner. We have to be very cognizant that there are other people that are receiving the water flow from the new concrete that's being put in. We are getting in a dire situation. Ms. Vandiver is right. Never used to flood, and it's just increasingly getting worse. Every single month that we're adding more concrete. I question, and if we're not familiar with the ordinances, I'm curious to know. I went looking myself. I don't know if there is any enforcement of that. Ordinances are asking or required to hold water retentions on the property. Are they being enforced? Nobody knows. That needs to be addressed, especially by the engineering department and those who are overseeing the permits and the site inspections of things. Because if not, then we will continue to flood out all of our neighbors downstream. There's more to discuss, obviously, but please get educated on all the ordinances that are required in order to for these companies that are coming in, especially down Lamar. You can see it.
Your 2 minutes are up. Can
Thank
you
you.
kind of
Absolutely.
wrap it up?
Please get educated. That's my request and my plea for the council as we move forward so that things are done in a proper and prudent manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Alvin Atwood. I live at 2419 Bonham Street. I came up here to touch bases with y'all on a subject that I will have to delay for now. And I just kind of come up here to hang out with my daughter and let her see all this. I'm trying to teach my kids about government. That being said, I was just listening to the conversations and through all the things we got going with the sewer plant and all that. We're fixing to talk about drainage dishes and stuff too. I'm poor. I ain't got the money for all that. Please don't raise them taxes too high. Please. I'm still trying. I've got a big dead tree over my house I can't afford to take down. We're not even allowed to sleep in my bedroom if it's going to rain. I don't want to die. So just, with all this consideration, everything y'all have heard, please consider the tax rates and, with the inflation that's already plaguing this country and people can't afford this, people can't afford that. We're raising rates already for the sewer plant. Please do not raise rates anymore for this drainage. I agree it's something that needs to be done. If y'all can try to figure, y'all are all smart people. I've talked to some of y'all. Your education is way better than mine. But I know that you all can come together and come up with something to where we're not shelling out more money. Thank y'all, that's it.
Thank you. Welcome to your daughter. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Pierce of 405 Northeast 20th Street. I was fifth grade at Aiken Elementary, Crockett Junior High, and Paris High School. Devoted a lot of my time to these city streets. I'd like to start by apologizing to Mr. Mackey, the Zoning Commission, and the concerns I raised at the February 6th Planning and Zoning meeting, if they seemed adverse or as if a personal attack was being made, or if it caught anyone off guard. This is 59 years of pain is built up behind this argument. And this is an urgent issue. It's Mr. Del Toro, Ms. Malone, Mr. Pickle, Ms. Vanderbury, Mr. Hayter, who's not here today, all have been dealing with these issues for their entire lives as well. Today's agenda in the memorandums reflects, we announced our concerns at the Planning and Zoning meeting about this ongoing stormwater runoff issue that gets worse with every new development, 5 and 5s included. Since 1964, the problem has been attempted, taught about, bandaged, and now resorted to by order of previous Mayor Hashmi to clean out the ditches and inspect some inadequate intake infrastructure. There was no elaboration in these background to the questions, there was no elaboration in the background memorandum that we brought forward in your memorandum that you read today, that we presented to zoning. A local doctor, a bishop, a retired engineer, a school teacher, and various lifetime residents all stood to speak out in a forced outcry because their rights under the Texas water codes are not being protected. And I'm not here in opposition to responsible development. However, unless we leave here tonight with a clear understanding of what immediate measures are to be taken to resolve the issues arising from the inadequate intake and discharge of Big Sandy Creek tributaries 4 and 6, I'm here to oppose any items on today's agenda that are likened to an irresponsible continuation of the agendas in the past.
Mr. Pierce, 2 minutes is up. Wrap up your remarks, if you would.
Thank you. I digress.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
My name is Joyce Rivard. I live at 1843 Pine Bluff, the corner of Pine Bluff and 19th Street.
Would you pull the mic down towards your mouth, please? Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
I live at the corner of 19th and Pine Bluff Street, and I'm here just to express my concerns about the water and the flooding. The water retains on Pine Bluff Road. Many times it has also down 19th and my ditch there. They have come out in the past and done some work on both sides of 19th Street because it just wouldn't flow and was just flooding. Behind my house there's an alleyway that has grown up and I get flooding in my backyard. And I'm not against the development. And in fact, I'm, really pleased to see Paris growing and developing the way they are. I just want to express concerns that the flooding issues get taken care of for myself as well as so many other people, and many that probably are not even here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, the public forum is closed. On the consent agenda, items are approved by a single action of the council with such approval applicable to all items appearing on the consent agenda. A council member may request any item to be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. Does any member wish to remove an item?
I don't want to remove an item, but I just wanted to ask just a comment. Would it be possible, when we receive the drainage reports, could we categorize them by district or by council districts?
Yeah, I think we can try to do that.
Okay. I don't want to make more work out of it, but it makes it easier to read and just kind of flows a little bit better, and we can see, hey, where are kind of our problem areas.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other items? All right. If not, there's a motion. Is there a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The consent agenda is passed 7-0. Item number 14, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of Chad Stevens on behalf of Kenda Taylor for a comprehensive plan amendment from low-density residential LDR to commercial in Jefferson Heights, Block A, Lot 1 and Lot 22, located in the 3800 block of Southeast Loop 286 and part of 3755 Jefferson Road, 0.202 acres, LCAD 12434 and 22151. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. We have an item here before you this evening with a request by Mr. Stevens on behalf of the owner of the property, the seller, to amend the comprehensive plan for this particular property. You'll see the site here in question. This area has all been currently guided for low-density residential development. That's not in any way consistent with the current zoning of the property. And we are recommending that, and the City Planning and Zoning Commission is recommending that the council re-guide this property in the future land use map from the designation of low-density residential to commercial.
All right, I will open the public hearing and ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this item to please come forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any discussion, council?
Isn't there a church right there on that corner? Of Jefferson and the Loop, isn't that a church right over there on that side? I'm looking at the map you have up.
On the north
right
side?
In that, yeah, right in that area.
Yes,
there's a
there
church
is.
there, right?
Yes.
Do we know what the intentions are, why we're changing this, why the people are asking for this to be changed?
I can get into that a little bit more in the rezoning, but there is an intention for a small commercial operation to locate here. And as they come forward with the change in rezoning, we first look at the land use map, and that's the first action before you is again, guiding this area for commercial development. If you look at the current map, that's actually how it's zoned right now, general retail. That's all shown in red in this location. And so, you know, as you can see, I mean.
Pathway Church of God's across the street.
Yeah.
The church is
Well, it's
all,
right
is
next
all
to it.
guided for
Yeah.
agricultural use. And of course, it's already developed as a commercial use for a church.
Yes, yes. So we're talking about on the,
We're simply addressing the property based upon the application of the property and the applicant. We're not expanding out beyond
Yeah,
just the site itself.
yeah, and we had one input, somebody objected to this.
That's correct.
What was the complaint? Do you
The
remember?
concern was that the commercially zoned property or retail zoned property shouldn't be developed commercially. There was concern about increase, I believe, crime or that sort of thing identified in the input. And nobody spoke at the public hearing at the P&Z.
Well, in the land right down the street from that on the same side, the southeast side, that's already commercial anyway, right? Churches are there. I can't point to it for you, but there's like a church right down from there as well,
It's
right?
commercial, mini
Yeah.
storage, there's a church over here.
Yeah.
So there is commercial along the southeast loop here.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Mr. Mack? Comments? All right, I'll hear a motion.
Make a motion to approve item 14 as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. No further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 15, discuss, conduct a public hearing and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of Chad Stevens on behalf of Kenda Taylor for a zoning change from a one-family dwelling district number 2, SF2, to a commercial district C in Jefferson Heights, Block A, part of Lot 1.202 acres, located at 3755 Jefferson Road, LCAD 12434. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Now that we have addressed the land use map, the follow-up to this is actually 2 parcels that are requested as a part of this rezoning, taking them from general retail to commercial, and also a portion of the residential property that has the 2 large outbuildings back behind the home, bringing this rear portion of the lot into the same commercial zoning district. So it's actually 2 parcels being affected by the change, 1 action by the council on your vote. We've done an analysis of this area. We see this as a intersection. Not only is it appropriate for future commercial development in terms of land use, but in terms of the actual zoning, we believe that the change from a general retail district, which is more limited in scope in terms of what can be built and developed, that a general commercial classification makes sense, and we are supporting the change of the property to the commercial zoning district, as well as your planning commission following review and analysis. Again, we did receive the 1 objection, but we're not affecting the remaining area of the neighborhood. There are screening measures and buffering that's a requirement within the ordinance for any new development that would be commercial, that would protect the residential character of the neighborhood. And we also have, as you see on this property back here, we have a large buffer area that would serve as additional transitional areas that can't be developed, and will provide for greater protection of the residents in this area through open space area, and where additional plantings, screening can be imposed. The initial interest is strictly to set up a commercial operation with these 2 buildings. They would be required to provide new access to that, and we'll look forward to addressing those plans once we address the zoning change this evening. Again, staff and P&Z have recommended approval.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing and ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this item to please come forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any discussion or questions of Mr. Mack? I have one question. Can you give us just the short list of what types of things would be allowed in commercial as opposed to general retail?
Well, so the retail district is, as we know, we've just recently gone through revisions to the neighborhood service district. We also looked at the general retail district. The commercial uses would be slightly more intense, that you would expect to develop along the loop, and particularly at a major intersection such as this. So, I mean, a retail shops, there's a wide variety of a lot of retail uses that would fit, but in terms of commercial uses, again, they're slightly more intense. Without bringing up our land use matrix and covering every single use, I hope that's a kind of a quick overview.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Well, it didn't give us, I don't know if you can say it, but it didn't give us examples of retail versus commercial.
So
just an example.
A gas station would not be permitted general retail, but it would in a commercial zoning district. A contractor shop is the specific use that's proposed as a part of the rezoning. That's not allowed in general retail. an automotive dealership, not permitted general retail,
Yeah.
permitted commercial.
Any further questions? I'll hear a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented.
Second. A second, okay, a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 16, discuss, conduct a public hearing and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of Chad Stevens on behalf of Kenda Taylor for a zoning change from a general retail district, GR, to a commercial district, C, in Jefferson Heights, Block A, Lot 22, located in the 3800 block of Southeast Loop 286, LCAD 22151. Anything you want to add?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Council. My previous presentation covers the same item.
Same item, okay. I'll open the public hearing and ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this item to please come forward.
I just have a general question about traffic flow across the loop at that point, because it's already difficult sometimes with the high school getting out there. There's been several accidents as people try to cross the loop. So I'm just asking, is what traffic things, I don't want a signal, another signal or anything, but we go that way all the time. Also, that whole area has a drainage issue like these other people are talking about, because that house that's they want the back of, it's been up for sale for a long, long time, and you can just see all the cracks in it and whatnot. But I just hope the traffic is being addressed.
Thank you. Will there be a traffic impact assessment required, Mr. Mack? Oh,
Not for the rezoning, there would not be.
okay.
It would be a specific use that would trigger such a study, and in this case, that's not anticipated.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Malone?
Madam Mayor, if we're going to continue to take testimony, if you had closed the public hearing, we probably ought to reopen it.
Okay. I'll reopen
Shall
the public hearing.
Oh, does that mean I talk or go sit down? My concern, as with all new development, is our engineering department making a distinct evaluation of what the homeowners will be facing as, say, for example, the commercial property turns out to be where trucks come in and out all the time, or if it's a large retail with that takes in big trucks and all. And that means a lot of paving, a lot of hard surfaces. And do they go behind these people's houses, and will these be engineered so that the water that they generate, which they will generate a lot of runoff, will they be engineered and required of the people getting permits to put retention ponds or drainage areas to keep people who have been there for a long time and maybe want to stay or maybe want to sell, whatever. But will they, is there some assurance that this water retention issue, which goes past the loop, will be addressed for those homeowners and the other businesses that might be there?
Thank you, Ms. Malone. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? I will reclose the public hearing. Mr. Mack, you want to address that question about the engineer?
At the point in time when we deal with a plat, or a subdivision plat, or a land division, which we will in this case, also with a site plan review and approval, our codes and ordinances require that the drainage be addressed.
Thank
There
you.
are specific provisions in our ordinances to do just exactly that.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
Oh, yes, I have a question. I guess it's for Ms. Harris. So is it not permitted for, I mean, like Mr. Mack, to tell us what type of business is going in? Not the business name or who, you know, but the type of business? Is that not permitted if we wanted to know?
No, it is permitted, and I think he talked about a commercial contracting shop. Is that what you said?
That's the intent.
Anything specific? Since we can know.
There would be storage of commercial equipment. There would be a shop within the larger buildings. That was the intention.
Like storage, those type of things of large equipment?
Correct.
Okay, so, and the reason I'm asking, because I don't know, I can't remember the lady's name, but she brought a great point up about traffic coming and going from Paris High. So we don't want to, and you're right there at an intersection on top of it. So, you know, we don't want to increase the danger of lives. As she stated, coming from that cross street, which I only live a couple of miles from there, so I use that access a lot. It gets kind of dangerous, you know, at times, so you have to consider that when we're putting businesses in. So I just wanted to know what type of business, because, you know, sometimes we don't have any idea up here what's going on. So I wanted to know, is it all right for you to tell us what type of business is going in?
Sure. So what I would anticipate this type of business, it's going to be very low traffic volume type business. That might not necessarily be the case in the future. I don't anticipate what they're doing here is substantially developing all of the 5+ acres that the property contains. That could come in the future if the interchange develops. What we also need to keep in mind is that TxDOT has a long-range plan for the creation of a frontage road system. This area is addressed as a part of that frontage road plan. You see the change here. This is a fence line that's actually here. It shows that the right-of-way is up into this area for the interchange, but actually what they own is up to this fence line, and so there's large area that will include space for a future frontage road system over time as the traffic dictates. It's not part of TxDOT's immediate plan. We have other areas of our community that are higher priority for that, but this would eventually include a frontage road system in the future.
Just to aid to that too, Mr. Savage, I think with the Loop 286 project, I think we should maybe voice our concerns there also and say, hey, listen, this might be a point of contention here in this area, to say, hey, let's figure out a way to have better traffic flow in this particular area. But that Loop 286 project should cover a lot of those concerns with that frontage road. So I forgot what the layout looks like in that area, but
there is a frontage road system in here. The greater interest for management of traffic flow through this area will be our 200-acre development just to the north of this area. And that intersection will likely receive more pressure over time from that development than it ever will from this intersection in the near term. And that's an exciting development. That's our Forest Brook development.
No further discussion. I'll hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning from general retail to commercial.
And a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 17, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of Bailey AC on behalf of Creative RE Investments, LLC, for a comprehensive plan amendment from low-density residential, LDR, to medium-density residential, MDR, in the P.J. Willis and Brothers Addition, Block A, Lots 6 and 7B, located at 1307 East Polk Street, LCAD 20734. Mr. Mack, you have a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. The request before you this evening is again twofold, two-step. It's amend the land use plan to accommodate a slight increase in density for this area. Currently, the plan calls for low-density residential. However, as we analyze this area, we see that we do have some increase in density. We see that we have a large park and open space able to provide for some transition within this neighborhood. We also have some pockets of some neighborhood service zoning that's a part of this area as well. After a review of this and discussion with the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was no inputs received in objection. There was no public hearing statements of concern. I think you heard a concern earlier in your citizen forum regarding this area. However, staff and Planning and Zoning Commission are recommending that you update the land use map and accommodate this change for this site from the low-density residential to medium-density residential.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing and ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this item. Please come forward.
I'm in opposition of it. It is next to the park, and there are a lot of kids there. I don't know what you're planning on building there, but I got a hunch it's going to increase traffic immensely. Not to mention, it's on top of the hill, and the water runs down to my house. It stops at Cedar and sits there already. And if they build, say they build an apartment, I don't know what they're going to build there, but if they build apartments, you're going to have parking lots. They're going to be all concrete. They're going to drain right down to Cedar, and you're going to have more water sit there. My front yard's already a muddy mess. So I really don't want to see this go through, and I think it's a bad idea to do that next to the park. You have the Paris Living Authority on the other side of it already, and it's all houses all around the park. Now we want to go in and change it to medium density.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
I have some experience with Polk Street, as I grew up there living at my grandmother's house on west of there, close to 8th Street. So we're at 12th, and it's 4 blocks to 8th Street. And as I recall, there is a drainage ditch that went past her house and flooded my grandpa's garage continually. After they died, the house was torn down and nothing could be built there anymore because there was so much water damage. So I would like to encourage the engineering department to consider, as this gentleman said, the way that the water drains on Polk Street and those other streets, because once you have a street that's higher up, like 12th might be higher, and everything down west is going to receive a lot of water. And so it would be judicious for us to always evaluate whether we're going to create a need for a water retention area, because I know where my grandma's ditch is, I mean, without her house being torn down, that would be a perfect water retention area if there were a pond or a catchment there. And it would maybe perhaps alleviate some of that gentleman's problems if there were water catchment at a higher elevation. We have all the paperwork on the elevation in Paris. We're supposed to be 600 feet above sea level. There is fewer places than the fingers on my hand that are 600 feet. Many of our main roads, like 19th Street, is up high, and everything falls away from it. Now, back when there wasn't so much housing and houses had gravel streets and et cetera, the ability of the earth to soak up a lot of water and the trees to soak up a lot of water made a difference. But now, as we are with apartments, you can't set them down in a puddle. You know, people don't want to live in a place like that, so they're built up and their concrete goes down, and we know that to be true. They got to have a bunch of parking that goes out to the street. You know, if it's a duplex, they may be parking for 6 cars going out to that street. And so I would caution, because of my memories of, as a kid, we played Army in that ditch, much to the chagrin of my parents. But it was always filled with water, dirty water, and that's what they didn't like. But that area is prone to runoff water. So much of this could be solved with retention ponds, retention areas, places that don't have to have houses torn down or buy somebody's big house and tear it down to put a pond in. Put a retention pond that would keep Polk Street down from whatever that street that would be, 12th down toward 8th Street, from becoming a river. Thank you.
Thank you.
So here it says 2-family, here it says 1-family.
So there's a few concerns here. One specifically, I can't really comment on the safety issues. I can see how that could be a concern, and it should be given some consideration. The main one is the drainage. I just happen to have a drainage map, shows the different tributaries. One of the main ones actually runs right over 12th and Polk right here, so that's actually a very high water flow area. And so I guess I'm up here expressing my concern that if we're going to approve something, then we better know what we're actually approving when we say that, and what the plan is from start to finish, because just based off of that, if we're going to increase the amount of runoff, then it literally will contribute to that. That's not a question, according to this map, the Lamar CAD web map that we printed off. And so then it's a matter of, okay, if we approve it, then what are some of the ideas to solve it? Well, retention's a great idea, and I'm all for the development of it, but how are we going to control it? And the follow through, Mr. Mack, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Maybe this is more of a rhetorical question. You know, what are the ordinances, and familiarizing ourselves with those ordinances that are required for the retention on the site, or if there's another ordinance that requires that something's developed off-site. I am not familiar with those. I could not find them myself. But I'm very leery about getting on board and really ask that we become educated, that we're not drowning out the rest of our neighbors down the stream. If those ordinances exist, I would love a copy of them. I'd like to know, have they been applied? Again, rhetorical. I'm not saying that it necessarily falls on one person to make sure, but certainly there has to be some follow through down the road. And I'm commenting on some of the things as my experience, but everything north of me, which we can get to later, is as those things were approved, those projects are approved, and it comes right through my back door every time. Were those ordinances for retention followed? Was the new farmers and HTO, as they increased the amount of runoff there, were those ordinances followed? What were the ordinances? Maybe that's something that we need to be familiar with before we make a decision to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this item?
Ray Pierce, 405 Northeast 20th. As I was saying earlier, I'm not in opposition to responsible development. I am here to oppose any items on today's agenda that reflect the past, similar to the past zoning developments that were approved and have only exacerbated our flooding issues.
But please keep it to this particular address.
There are multiple examples across town that do exist. This can be one of them. In regards to responsible development, that means demolition, cutting down heritage trees. Okay, are there Did Creative RE Investments in Bailey responsibly post their demolition permits? Did they apply for Texas Heritage Tree Act plans? Has the city arborist surveyed these areas?
Mayor,
Mr. Pierce.
Those would be beginning steps in a responsible development.
This public hearing, though, is not about that.
This is about a location where heritage trees were cut down.
but it's with respect to the zoning and not all the different development issues with the property. It has to do
Okay,
with the zoning
but it starts with
specifically.
zoning, because if you pinch it off at zoning and make them do by right way, you can then allow us to grow. That's all I'll say on that topic.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? I will close the public hearing. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to know, because I look at this and I see that it's a two-family dwelling district all around it, and then all of a sudden, we're gonna just drop in a multifamily in the middle of what looks like two-family structures. Could you please explain to me what exactly that means by increasing it to a multifamily dwelling in this neighborhood where it's all single family, it appears to be all single families?
Well, we're changing it to, or considering changing it to medium density. Can you explain medium density?
Yes, what does that mean?
Correct. So medium density would allow for less than apartments. So a duplex, a triplex, maybe a quad, up to possibly 4 to 8 dwelling units would be a medium density. Apartment zoning would be higher than that.
Is there already some of those structures directly across the street?
So there are, that's actually some duplexes directly across the street. I did hear the question about what was going to be built here. I normally can speak to that during the zoning, but I'll just indicate there is interest in building duplexes on the lot.
How many?
We believe that based upon the zoning request that will follow this, which is the median density question before you right now, it would be up to 3 duplexes. And currently we have 5 duplexes directly across the street.
Across right here, those are the duplexes right
That
there.
the land use plan was not amended for those to be built. As we look at the zoning next, you'll see that it's correctly zoned for duplexes, but there's multiple structures. Actually, it's shown right here as duplex and then MF1.
So, educate me. If it's low density, you cannot build duplexes? I'm asking.
No.
You cannot?
We want to have the land use plan consistent with the rezoning. This is a practice that I've implemented since I began here 2 years ago, where we update the land use plan each and every time that we consider a zoning action, so that our zoning is in accordance with the comprehensive plan.
But you can build duplexes in a low-density area, is that right?
Yes, that's true.
So for these people to be able to build duplexes, you don't have to make it medium density, right?
For us to build multiple structures on one lot, that triggers a MF1 zoning. The duplex zoning, again, we're dealing with the land use, but the zoning is next. And the reason that the request came in for MF1 is that they would be 3 duplexes, they would be all built on one single lot and not individual lots, which are required for the 2F zoning.
In the past, the city was not amending the FLUM, the future land use map, like we should have been doing. Again, this is before Mr. Mack and before myself. The city in the past was just allowing construction and whatever zone it was, retail and commercial, commercial and retail. high density and low and so forth. We're trying to clean all that up so that whenever we have a use presented to us, we're making sure that the future land use map is matching that. Obviously, the area there has some duplexes there. The FLUM probably should have been amended back then. It's before our time. We're trying to do it right by our codes today. Our codes require us to do that. If the council wished to see the duplexes and the zoning changes there, we have to amend the FLUM to allow that. We don't have to as well. We don't have to allow the rezoning as well. But so with that, we don't want to redo the FLUM either. So the request was for multiple duplexes on one lot, which does require MF1. If it was one duplex in the lot, it wouldn't be MF1, but the request of the developer is multiple duplexes. So that's we know of that, and so we don't have to allow that. Obviously, we as a city have been asked to do that, and so we're bringing it to the city council, see if you'd like to see that done.
Well, Councilmember Pilgrim pointed out that this area that's just to the, well, I don't know the direction here, but it's going to be to the west, okay? To the west is duplexes, and I remember those when I saw the picture.
Maybe quadplexes, but they look like duplexes from the aerial.
But they're also placed well on the block, you know, and they don't look like they're big, huge apartment complex or a bunch of duplexes crowded on a lot without any landscaping. If you look at this, these are very well established. They've got landscaping around it, and it's hard to tell that they're a bunch of duplexes right there. And, you know, this has been my hope for this 5 in 5 program, is that they will look like this with landscaping, and it will look like it blends well into the community. I know for a fact that these blend well into the neighborhood and into the community, and that's what I was hoping that this 5 in 5 would do, blend well into the neighborhood. Now, just because across the street there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 duplexes that are built there, or triplexes or whatever they are, the point is that they fit in the neighborhood, as opposed to, I can't wait to see what this turns out to be. Are they going to be 2-story metal apartment duplexes that I have seen in the 5 in 5 program that have yet to be landscaped, so that when it does rain, the water doesn't pull away from the foundation of the structure? You know what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm concerned about with the 5 in 5 program. I'm all about more housing, oh yeah, but it's very concerning to me that they stay within the feel of the neighborhood, if that makes sense to anybody. I don't want these great big huge 2-story duplexes when everything around you is a 1-story structure, and I'd like to see them landscaped. I think we made that part of the ordinance, if I'm not mistaken. We made this part of the ordinance. So that's my only concern here, is that the buildings fit on the lot.
Thank you.
And I realize we've got building codes that say, okay, you have to be 10 feet away from here and 10 feet away from here. But we still have to make sure that it doesn't look out of place for the neighborhood. And I know that gets tricky. I know that's tricky.
And if we can revisit the 5 in 5, I don't recall the landscape. It's probably there. I just don't recall that being in the actual writing there. Obviously, if there are ordinances in the codes the council would like for us to enforce, we ask that you please approve those so we can enforce those. We're just attempting to enforce the codes that we have in front of us. And so we were asked to bring this development before you, and so we're just attempting to bring that to you tonight. So,
and I know Stephanie is getting all twisted up over there because we're talking about all kinds of other things other than what we need to do. So
I'm keeping my powder
I
dry for the moment.
I apologize for that. I mean, I sort of got on everybody else.
Thank you, Councilmember Knox, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I would like to respond. I'm very familiar with the AC construction type for duplexes. They are single story. I do believe that they are capable of designing them to fit well onto the site. we absolutely will go through a requirement, through plating, through drainage analysis. We will do on-site retention before any stormwater discharges from the site. These things will all be looked at in the development stages without question.
Thank you.
Mr. Mack.
I also believe that if we're going to look at landscaping requirements for single and duplex, we may need to change some codes. I don't believe that's a requirement as it would be for commercial and multifamily development. So we don't have to plant a tree in every single family lot. That's not currently on our books right now.
I've got a question on that, but I'm not going to ask that at this time. So let's circle back on that a little bit later. One thing I want to just point out here, and I don't mean to divert here, but there is one thing that I want to ask. A number of years ago, whenever I served on planning and zoning, there was a packet that would be, brought on as a tutorial or as a guide for any person that's on P&Z or anyone that has anything to do with P&Z that would be able to define what these, 2F and SF2 and SF1 and all these things are. Can council get that? I mean, I know I have that, and if we don't still do that, then I have that packet. I would love to be able to share that, but I think that should be a staple of, because we go through so much zoning, and these are good questions that our colleagues are asking, but we need to know these things. And I mean, if that's not given to us, I think that we'd be in a great.
Absolutely. If you have a copy of that, just to compare what we have in the files, I mean, we'd be happy to share if that's been working. I know one of the future items on the agenda tonight is talking about the PDA, the unification of the code. That's going to change a lot of things, and so I think a lot of it's going to be covered in that process as well.
I'll bring it by, and you guys take a look at it, see, and if we need to disperse it, then great.
Any further discussion? I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 18, discuss, conduct a public hearing and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of Bailey Acey on behalf of Creative RE Investments, LLC, for a zoning change from a two-family dwelling district, 2F, to a multiple family dwelling district, number 1, MF1, in the P.J. Willis and Brothers Edition, Block A, Lots 6 and 7B, located at 1307 East Polk Street, LCAD 20734. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. This is the follow-up action on this for the change in zoning from 2F to MF1. Again, intent would be to permit up to 3 duplexes on the site. That decision hasn't been made. It would certainly allow for multiple structures on the single lot that will still need to be platted in this location. The subject property is Zone 2F, but it's now guided for medium-density residential with your approval in the previous action. And there's currently a vacant lot here. It was an older single-family home. It was demolished to make way for the redevelopment of the site. We've looked at the surrounding land uses, and we do have this substantial duplex complex immediately across the street. Based on that current use of the property and the proposed use on this site, the zoning would be consistent with the neighboring property. And the staff, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, are recommending that you approve the rezoning this evening.
Okay. I will open the public hearing and ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this item to please come forward, but please make your remarks relevant to this property.
I'll just keep it short. The question I think on everyone out here's mine is, how do we work towards a better tomorrow? Okay. And in regards to this, the zoning is one of the aspects that opens a floodgate of multiple different scenarios to occur after the fact. And I think it would save us a lot of time and outcry if maybe in executive session, you could roll back a plan to implement an additional ordinance that goes along with each zoning that comes down the pipeline in the future, including these tonight, and amend some of those topics that the state of Texas will enforce the Texas Heritage Tree Act. The Attorney's General Office will represent us in a class action suit if your city property floods our property. That is a debt that we do not have to bear. So rather than go into all the fisticuffs of courts and battles, like if just zoom out for a minute, just take 1 minute of your time and think, is there one little thing that we could plug in that works in conjunction with, simultaneously with these new zonings? Because Mr. Path is correct and on the right path, no pun intended. We need to clean up the zoning. We need the flume to be accurately represented. We need an overlay of the drainage to guide us. And infrastructure is first. Yeah, you can come and cut down trees, you can come down and demolish things, but the next thing you have to do is you got to build from the subterranean level up to the foundation, and then as high as the zoning requirements will allow.
Mr. Pierce, do you have any comments on this zoning change in particular?
That is my comment, that if an ordinance could be coupled with these zoning changes, that it would save us from even having to come down here every, say, Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Monday.
Anyone else on item number 18?
I just want to point out, it's the same, and this is addition, it's just over on the other tributary. So again, my opposition, my concern is the drainage, and again, it's hard for me to sit here and think that we're going to make a decision about moving forward. As we were at the Zoning Planning Commission about some of these exact same properties, this one in particular, it's they're making that recommendation, but I'm wondering if the council understands why they're making that recommendation. Did it come with a list of things that we're making this recommendation because of why? And then did they also look at these other concerns as well, and is the council aware of those? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Is there any discussion or questions for Mr. Mack?
Well, just to clear everybody's minds, because some of the citizens have asked, specific questions. So and this is not necessarily my question. I guess I'm just forwarding the doctor's question. Have we looked at everything? Have we looked at every ordinance? Have we looked at every, anything that might affect the community, that neighborhood or any neighboring, areas? Have we looked at all of that?
So the answer is we absolutely look at all of that, and we look at it at the appropriate stage in the development cycle.
Well, I just wanted you to be able to answer that.
Absolutely, we absolutely do look at that. In this case, we're looking at zoning changes. We analyze surrounding land uses, whether or not the use is compatible with the district. In some instances, we do some small carve-outs where we're trying to transition the more urban core, the infill areas of our community. That's definitely a nationwide trend to look to increase density where existing infrastructure is in place, such that we can, make wise fiscal use of the resources already in our community, water, sewer, streets, and certainly drainage is one of those considerations as well. And in this case, this site will have to handle its drainage, no different than what's already there. It will not be able to make the problem any worse. The development does afford an opportunity to improve the drainage condition of a particular site, provided that the proper engineering review is conducted. We have a brand new city engineer on hire. Our previous city engineer interim carefully looks at these each and every time this comes up before us. We address it at the pre-development stage or through our development review. In this case, the zoning triggers that types of discussion that we meet on a regular basis and address those specific concerns as we move forward. But again, the specific plans that will be looked at are at the stage of platting. They are at the stage of the site plan. They are at the stage prior to issuance of a building permit.
Thank you for clearing that up.
I'd like to add too, I mean, if there's anyone here who would like to see that process and walk through with us, I mean, please, you can get, I know Mr. Vine, our assistant city manager here, please get with him after the meeting, and so we can walk you through the process. We have an established process in our codes that walks you through the FLUM, the zoning, the platting, the site development, the final plat, the process there. And so obviously we as staff, we cannot circumnavigate that process, and we have to take everyone through the process. And there's a reason for that, why that process was created, for the developer in mind. And so, and for the proper review and proper steps in that. So if anyone here would like to learn more about the process, please give Mr. Vine after the meeting, and we'll give you some time and kind of walk you through that. And we can kind of show you how a pre-development meeting works, see what the developer has to go through the review process. So it is a very involved process they have to go through with this. I know it looks complicated from the outside, but we're here to share information. So I know we can't speak to all these things tonight because of what limits on the agenda. I wish we could speak to everything that everyone has here tonight. I mean, trust me, I want to answer all these questions here, but we're bound by the agenda, what we can and cannot talk about. So please get with Mr. Vine, and we can try to answer those questions to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Mr. Path. Any further questions or comments? I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
I'll hear a second. All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 19, discuss, conduct a public hearing and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of P-Town Property Holdings LLC for a comprehensive plan amendment from low-density residential to medium-density residential MDR in the City of Paris, Block 258-A, Lot 2A, located at 410 Northeast 20th Street, LCAD 18256. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. This is your action this evening. Again, a two-part request before you for amendment to the land use plan such that the zoning action that will follow will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. We have a request before us tonight for the site. We are aware of the fact that there is duplex development proposed on this property. This property is in the zoning and land use amendment stage. There will be a platting stage that would follow if the land use amendment and zoning changes are approved. At that point in time, we will 100% address the specific plans and development for the site. We start at the higher level with the land use map and the rezoning. So the request before you this evening is not to amend both properties. The subject developer owns both the vacant site here as well as the site here that is now vacant after removal of the structure. It was approved by my department for demolition. We do understand that there is a total of 8 duplexes that are anticipated for this site. The land use plan would go for amendment from the low-density residential to accommodate that medium-density classification to medium density. That is the requirement for the zoning to be consistent with the plan. So we start again with the amendment to the land use plan. During the public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission on February 6th, the city received extensive testimony regarding concerns about overall stormwater in the area. I know that those comments were taken seriously by our city manager. Our new city engineer is undertaking study to address these areas beyond just the subject property. Again, our ordinances will prevail with regard to any development for a given site It has to be engineered, stormwater has to be addressed. But again, this evening, what we're addressing is the land use amendment for the site. Again, this is an area that, quite frankly, in analyzing it, it's a fairly major intersection. It's a arterial roadway on 20th. It's a TxDOT roadway, and East Cherry Street is a local. It's a collector street that actually carries a substantial amount of traffic. Looking to increase density at an intersection is a good planning principle because we have the capacity to handle the traffic with this slight increase in density that is anticipated for the area. We do principally have single family in the neighborhood that's developed. However, we have some uses to the north, in particular on 21st Street. We've got a triplex that's up here, although the rest of the development is single family. It is currently zoned MF1. So as we begin to look at the zoning, this is a contiguous request and leading with the land use plan to increase to medium density makes sense. Your Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as your staff, are recommending approval of the future land use map this evening from low density residential to medium density residential.
And real quick to that point, as Mr. Mack was talking about there, and given there was considerable testimony at the meeting there, it's a part of our agenda packet. I'm going to try to walk a careful line between addressing drainage through this tributary 4 versus this area here, but we do want everyone to know we have heard the concerns about drainage in this tributary 4. I have tasked our new engineer, Todd Midke. He's here with us today. He is reviewing the 2016 flood event. He's reviewing how it impacts this area. He's reviewing this Cobden-Finley report in order to brief me and my staff on what was done, what was not done, what things can we do in regards to retention, and so forth. But with this too, as Mr. Mack stated, our ordinances, it's exhibit 9A, subpoint 9, letter E, addresses drainage, and for a subdivision, I'll be handling the plat process. But we are working as staff diligently trying to understand the issue in that area there for drainage, and so we need a little bit more time to do that, but we are working on that process. So we have heard the concerns, and again, I would encourage everyone here, if anyone has particular concerns about the drainage, please, I don't want to keep throwing Mr. Vine here, but I know he's right there in the field, so please see him after the meeting right away, and so we can talk to you and discuss that. So this item here is in regards to this particular site. Our ordinances are going to address drainage and when the plat process comes, but I know I can't alleviate all concerns when I say this, but we are looking at the tributary 4 issue as a whole, which is somewhat of a separate and apart issue from individual lots like this. So it is a developmental truth that when you develop a property, you are adding impermeable surfaces typically. That's developmental truth. Our ordinances are designed to try to meter that so it doesn't discharge heavily, quickly into the system, but as Mr. Midke said, meter it, manage it as it's exiting the property. So instead of getting dumped on, it works its way out. A good example is Family Dollar in North Main. The retention pond there, trying to address the parking and so forth there by metering it out. So that although we've added more impermeable surfaces in these development projects here, our ordinances are designed to manage that, regulate it as it's exiting out. And so, but we are looking at that very heavily. So.
Thank you. I will open the public hearing and ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of item number 19 to please come forward.
My name is Linda Vandiver. I live at 540 Northeast 21st Street, and it's my understanding that some of the duplexes that are going to be built on this are going to face 21st Street as well as 20th Street. I was not able to attend the planning and zoning public hearing due to illness, but I understand a lot of that was based on the drainage, and that is an issue. There is, I hesitate to call it a drainage ditch because it's not like any drainage ditch I've ever seen. It's right across the street from where these are going to be built on 21st. It's probably only about 5 or 6 inches deep, and it's wide enough that people have in the past been using it for a driveway. That is an issue. So, and there's oftentimes there's water standing on this lot that we're talking about. There is a great issue. I've had my sunroom flooded numerous times since I've lived in the house. I bought it in '98. So there are some issues with that, but one of my concerns, special concerns, is the traffic that this is going to create on 21st Street. There is a cul-de-sac at the end of our street, which means there's only one way in and out of our street. People park on the street, they park, visitors when coming to visit someone park on the street frequently. As an example, last night I came home about 7 o'clock and I was barely able to get down the street because there were cars parked on both sides. It's a typically narrow residential street. It can't handle that kind of traffic. And like I say, if we get caught in there, we can't get in or out because there is only one way to get in and out of this. So I'm very much opposed to this. Just like to state that, and I know some of my neighbors are too. They weren't able to come tonight. I think they figured probably it was a done deal once they met with planning and zoning. But I would like to issue my opposition to this and would request that you think about this very, very heavily because this is going to be a problem for those of us who live on this street. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vandiver.
She's my neighbor, and 21st Street is a very unusual street. It comes off of 20th, named a little short piece named Kyle, and Kyle turns into 21st Street, which runs into Cherry. On that side, there are a multitude of dwellings, from single family to I don't know how many. One triplex, which I counted the driveways on that triplex, and there were place for 5 cars. That's a lot of concrete. As I went down that street, I counted the driveways in that little cul-de-sac. There were 19 entries off of the homes and the inn onto that little cul-de-sac of 21st. All that water goes down to Cherry. When 410, the large piece of property that we're talking about, when it is developed with 6 or 8, ever how many duplexes that are planned, there will be that many more driveways. They're going to have to put some of them off on 21st Street, some of them off on 20th Street, and the lowest place is Cherry Street. This property has 3 sides to it: 21st, 20th, and Cherry. All the trees that block the water from flowing out at the end have been cut. There is not a tree left on that, which being a tree hugger and seeing a 200-year-old oak tree fall was hard for me to. But it was, well, we needed more room to build houses on. But that's beside the point. Progress comes along. I hated to see it go. I hated to see it. But when you say there's several duplexes above us, we take water from Tudor Street to Cherry. We take it from Pine Bluff Street to Cherry. And then Cherry takes it down to this god-awful ditch that goes through the woods and over to Wade Park. It's not paved. It's got concrete thrown in it. It's just a big trashy-looking thing that gets bigger all the time. Now, my point is, I marked on my crudely drawn but accurate map of how many multifamily and business entrances are in that area. There's a whole lot of property that's been developed. Just on 20th Street, those of you that are old enough will remember the Buttermilk Creek moratorium back when Southeast Paris was being flooded. They put a moratorium on building in our area. That didn't last long. Before I knew it, there were 1, 2, 3 apartment streets on Booth Street. Then they built one across the street on Booth Street. There have been 2 built on 20th Street between Booth and Tudor in the last couple of years, or shorter. On the other side, there are already 3 huge duplexes. These are double duplex. Well, I guess duplex means it's double. But each driveway, because people like to have lots of cars, each driveway has 4 entries, room for 4 cars. That's like having 4 driveways. So I know y'all know the area of Mr. Grebb's property that's behind the nursing home. Behind his property, there are, I don't know how many strings of apartments back there, built years ago. And the water has come down that street, which I guess you'd call it 22nd. It's not 22nd, it's just a big driveway. It's come down there all this time. Behind the nursing home that's been leveled, except for the concrete over the dirt in front of it, there's only 1 strip of nursing home left. I went back a few days ago, and there were 19 cars parked behind that nursing home, what used to be a nursing home. And they have had, where the windows were in the nursing home, they've had doors put in there, and those are single apartments. Single apartments. And that's 19 people that come in and out of there every day. So when Ms. Vander was talking about the traffic, yes, she's had that traffic up and down behind her for years. We've had the school buses come to that corner, and it's a song and a dance to see those kids and their parents get off those school buses and disload there because the traffic is. We take traffic from 195 all the way probably to the river. The traffic comes in on 195, it turns into 20th, it comes through. At certain portions of the day, traffic is backed up from Dos Marias, that's on Pine Bluff and 20th. It's backed up to Booth Street, end on end. Now that's at rush hour and lunch and after coming the other way afterwards. But the traffic will be a big problem. I guess we can handle it. I'm on that corner. I don't sleep much on Saturday night because of the traffic. But that can be handled. That is not going to drown anybody or cause their expensive property to be damaged, especially elderly people that can't afford to fix up their property. That kind of development is toxic unless we as concerned citizens who love this little town, who like it because it's quiet for the most part, and it's noisy where it has to be. Lamar Avenue's noisy, 20th Street's really noisy, Pine Bluff Street's really noisy now because of the traffic. I guess they have to be. But we don't have to dump the water from this beautiful property. I know that this man that's going to develop it will improve the looks of the neighborhood immensely with those brand new duplexes, 6, 8, I've heard 6 and I've heard 8. That's a lot of duplexes on there. But it's not, and we shouldn't make it his job to solve the water problem, just because he's the last one that we can pounce on. That's not the purpose here. We want properties to build, but we need to draw a line and say, if you cannot show where, not just how you get the water off of your property, but what water coming off of your property does to Linda's house over on 21st Street, or that it does down the road to where that ditch goes, and I don't know whether to call it a ditch or a creek. They call it a ditch, but it's as wide as from those 2 posts to the center. It's a huge, nasty-looking chunks of concrete ditch, and it goes huge. It flows to Wade Park. Wade Park was stipulated when it was given to the city that there would be a pool at the end of it. I used to play in that pool when I was a little girl.
Ms.
They've done
Malone, if you'll start wrapping up your,
They've done away with it. She knows I'm too loquacious. But it's an important thing to me that we preserve our city that exists while we welcome the improvement, while those little falling down cottages are replaced. But it has to me, in my thought, as I'm not going to even charge you for this study. It won't cost you a thing. But it's observation, scientific in looking into it, and actually being there to see what's happened for, pardon me, 76 years. Okay? And my request is a point on the agenda or a meeting with our very cooperative city manager. He's looking up stuff and giving us lots of material to figure out where to put retention. We know we need major retention. And so we want to be on the agenda to talk about that, or we want to meet with you and you decide.
and that's been offered to you, and I appreciate that you'll take advantage of that. We're going to limit, if you've already spoken on the item.
I haven't spoken on this item, and I will keep it brief, I promise, because I understand everybody's time is important. I just have to publicly say that I oppose it, just for the same reasons I've already stated before, and since it's a new agenda item, I'm publicly opposing it, and specifically for me, because it comes through my back door, all this water, and it also goes down to Ms. Vandiver's, and that's why I'm opposing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
I'm Tim Reisinger. I'm the owner of the property that we're discussing. We're in the platting process of this to see what we can do, what we plan on doing. I will tell you this, and I waited till the end so I could address many concerns that people have. Our plan is to build beautiful brick duplexes that face 21st and 20th. We're looking at it from a standpoint of rear parking coming off East Cherry. I know this is all premature. I'm just addressing some of the concerns, which it would be all rear parking. So not coming off any of the road, but maybe one at the far north part that's already zoned multifamily. Me and Ms. Malone have some common ground. I love trees. You can come to my house and look all around it. I planted every one of them. The city says that we'll come in and put trees every 30 foot. We did have to take down some trees. Yes, we did. And you can actually, to me, when I pull up that intersection, you can see now. To me, it made the intersection safer there. But that's not the point to it. But not only do we plan on planting the trees all around the frontage of the 3 roads, we're going beyond that and planting them in the rear of the properties. Landscaping, everything. I've lived here my whole life. I pass this place 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. I'm not fixing to develop something that I'm not proud to pass and say, hey, you know. As far as the water, you know, I've been watching this lot for a year. When it gets saturated, the water runs right down the center of it, crosses 21st Street like it was on the map, drops off into that and heads towards Lamar. The gentleman in the back there that has the business that's flooded, you know, that's 6 football fields away from this property. You know, it sounds like sometimes that, hey, it's this property is the only problem to all the flooding down on Lamar. You know, I don't think that's the case. And what we're doing is going to enhance that neighborhood. And we're going to just make some conforming that conforms to the brick housing all around that area. And we'll work with the city and go beyond the specs that they're asking. So if there's any questions or anything I can.
Can I ask a question right now?
Will you,
Do I need to come back up here? You said that the parking is gonna be all in the back, but that's not gonna preclude people from parking on the street.
it's not
in front of it.
appropriate, ma'am, to question the developer, I'm sorry.
He asked for a question.
I was actually asking them for, to.
Okay, all right, that's the question. I just wondered.
Thank you.
What comes to Cherry Street that
One time
down.
during the public hearing is all, please. Mr. Reisinger, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else who has not spoken for or against? Okay. I will close the public hearing. Any discussion from council? Mr. Pilgrim?
Mr. Mack, can you do a favor for me? Can you pull up on your screen where it shows out there and as well as here the city base map, please? Kind of that same zoom out and turn the floodplain on, please. Okay. We got a little bit of background on this. I'm an accredited land consultant and appraiser. Do a lot of real estate development as my main job. Also, I'm a real estate broker. Help people buy and sell commercial properties all over the state of Texas, Oklahoma. We work in Colorado. We work in Louisiana. We work in Arkansas. If you buy a property, real simple, in the blue, there's a large chance, very large chance, that you could have water in your structure if you do not build above the floodplain. What does that mean? Explain that to where if we built in the floodplain today in the city of Paris, what would I have to do if I came to you and said I want to build a house there on the south side of Price Street within the floodplain? What would I have to do?
So to get to your question, the city participates in the National Flood Insurance Program. In order to participate in that program, these areas need to be mapped in cooperation with the federal government through FEMA, which is the agency responsible for this sort of thing. Although I'm not an expert on the engineering side of that, basically what it says is that in order for you to build on the property, city has to adopt ordinances that requires that you elevate any structure before you can get a building permit out of that floodplain area by 2 feet or higher above the established flood boundary based on the elevation of the flood map.
The structures that we're talking about that have been talked about numerous times today, I know for a fact they're not, a lot of them, built 24 inches above the floodplain. So this is also a waterway, if I'm not mistaken, a tributary to Big Sandy Creek. Is that correct, that we're talking about?
That's
this
correct.
floodplain area that's given trouble, that's having the issues.
That's
I think years ago, they got Corps of Engineers let them come in and put a concrete bottom in the majority of it to speed the flow of water away from some of these areas. To my knowledge, that was council's back, I'm going to say back in the 80s, maybe even the 90s. And then they went in and did that as a speed up process. So, yes, you could slow water flow and meter water flow with a retention pond. That's the ideal behind it. Every time a multifamily or any structure for that part, we have ordinances that say, because we looked at building a swimming pool at my house. My house is in a floodplain. And there's coverage areas that you can do within a lot, how much concrete you can pour on a lot to cover that without having an adverse effect on your neighbor with the hydro. Those hydros have to be done. Those hydros have been done. That's a floodplain. There is no, it's pretty easy. And I hate it. I don't like it. But as a real estate professional, that's what we do. I have to guide people through this all the time, and they go, man, I really like that building. I said, well, if you buy that building, you're going to have water in it. There's a 1% chance every time it rains, 100-year floodplain, 1% chance every time it rains. That's what the 100-year floodplain was designed and developed to do, that there's going to be water in your structure. So every 20 years, within our 48 inches of rainfall a year, you're probably every other year have a pretty good shot at getting a little bit of water in your structure in a 100-year floodplain. In a 500-year floodplain, that's 0.2%. Don't remember the gentleman's name here, but he explained that as well. And then if you build in a waterway, and the difference in a waterway means that there's going to be water flowing in there, and some of the structures, including the business on Lamar, the corner of the building is in the waterway. I hate that. My house is in a floodplain. My structure is elevated above the actual floodplain, so I'm going to have a moat whenever it rains a lot, probably more than likely. I'm going to live with that, and that's okay. And I do have flood insurance even though. But it is going to be a constant struggle, no matter how many structures are built there, no matter how much green space you have there. That is a tributary that's been there since the beginning of time. And the water's going to flow through there. The only way to adversely change that is move that tributary to the west, to the east. Can't move it south or north because that's the break. Just north of there, the water flows to the Red River. Just south of there, the water flows to the Sulphur River Basin. So my argument is, Mr. Reisinger is trying to build a structure, and I think there's some misinformation with a lot of the folks that are around there. And I understand the concern, but there's already been a structure there. There's going to be another structure there that's going to take a little bit more land out, maybe a lot more land out. But within the hydros that we can do that an engineer is going to stamp, which are pretty basic down-the-road principles. Water flows downhill. Water flows in low-lying areas, and it's continued to do that. It's going to continue to do that. Johnson Woods is a prime example. We've rebuilt that creek, I don't know how many times. We just rebuilt it again when I got on the council. Guess what? Big rain events, and you live in the floodplain up against that creek, there's a good possibility you're going to have water in your house. How do we prevent it? Hire a professional before you buy real estate. If you didn't, shame on you. I hire a professional to do anything I do, and we hire doctors to do different procedures and dentists to do procedures in our teeth, and we hire mechanics to fix our cars, and that is the number one process that I see that was not done with some of these. And some of these places shouldn't have been developed in 1971 to 1955, but their floodplain maps were probably either not looked at or not thought about then, or maybe they were just swept under the rug. Too late now. If it's in the blue, it's going to flood. It's a good possibility. I wanted to project that because Mr. Reisinger is trying to develop his property, and I totally on his side of we've got to let him have his land and his value, because changing his zoning, because downstream we've made some not as good decisions. I can't put that on Mr. Reisinger. It's not his fault.
I will state something real quick to aid in Councilman Pilgrim's statement here. I myself am a commercial property owner here in town. I have had a similar situation where I've been the last man to the game, right? Same situation. I have a 100-year FEMA floodplain on that property for me to be able to build. It took us to go through hoops to get that property to be able to be where it is today. That was thanks to the city of Paris and the staff and the council and the P&Z. And for folks that were able to be concerned citizens to stand here and sit here and be able to serve our citizens and hear the issues that come about. Your issues have not been lost. Clearly, we are definitely hearing you, but we want to be able to have that opportunity to be able to help. I've talked to Mr. Mack on this earlier today. There's clearly some stuff that needs to be done, and this is a bigger issue than Mr. Reisinger's property at this point. This is a major issue. And it doesn't just impact this area, it impacts a lot of our community. So I think all of us being here in general, no matter if you're on council or if you're a citizen or whatever, we're here to figure this out as a community. So at the end of the day, we need to figure this out, but I will tell you from a personal experience, rest assured, I have been in your shoes in this property that I've invested many millions of dollars on this property to build it up because I love this community just as much as you love yours. The city has not done me wrong on that. We've had to fall in line with federal guidelines with FEMA floodplain. We've had to fall in line with the state of Texas. We've had to fall in line with local government. But it is going to take some time, and it's going to have to take some transparency and us to be able to work together. And I think everyone in this room cares. But we have got to figure that out. And I just want to say that just to kind of alleviate some of the tension in the room at the moment. But I will tell you, we have a really good staff here. And I can't speak for the staff of decades ago, okay? But we've got a really good staff here that's willing to listen and figure things out. And I can tell you that just from serving just 2 years on council, we see that. So please know that, and let's figure it out. But I think seeing the preliminary discussion that the staff has put together, it does seem like we have some good solutions potentially that could help. But this is going to be a bigger discussion than tonight. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I would reiterate that our staff is working on it, and I have faith in our staff getting to the problem that's long overdue. All right, and no more discussion, I'll hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 20, discuss, conduct a public hearing and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of P-Town Property Holdings LLC for a zoning change from a one-family dwelling district, number 2, SF2, to a multiple family dwelling district, number 1, MF1, in the city of Paris, Block 25A, Lot 2A, located at 410 Northeast 20th Street, LCAD 18256. Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. This is the zoning action for the property. Again, we've adopted the amendment to the future land use map. We are now in position to zone in accordance with the comprehensive plan. That is a sound planning principle, and I appreciate the council allowing us to bring forth the application in that correct order. The applicant has requested, the hearing has been conducted. The Planning and Zoning Commission have recommended the approval of the zoning change to the City Council with staff's recommendation. Again, this is the first step in this process. We look forward to ways to actually help improve the drainage situation as a result of this development project, as well as the effort that the staff will continue to undertake in terms of looking at the larger area and begin to address areas of larger concern. So with that, again, we are recommending your approval of the rezone this evening from SF2 to MF1.
Thank you. I will open the public hearing and ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this item to please come forward.
I once again am objecting to this. I'm glad that Mr. Pilgrim is able to hire professionals to take care of things. Not all of us are able to do that. So just wanted to make that remark. If Mr. Reisinger is going to make the parking in the back of the duplexes, I can see that as another major problem. First of all, and if you have visitors, they're going to park on the 21st Street side. They're not going to park behind the house. I don't know if any of you know this, but East Cherry Street is a major thoroughfare between Collegiate and 20th Street. Heavy traffic use. There have been times when I couldn't even get out of my street because of the traffic being backed up there. This is only going to make it worse. You're putting 4 residences, I think Is there going to be two on the 21st Street side, Andrew? Two duplexes on 21st Street side?
Oh, it's just, am I supposed to answer that?
Well, anyway, that's going to be four residences in an area that's really only big enough for two. So that's an additional parking that will be on the street there and is going to create problems for us. Like I said, there's only one way in and out of our street. If we can't get out or in, we've got a problem. And I just would like to reiterate again that my objection to this, and my objection is almost more toward the parking and the traffic problem than it is toward the drainage. I know that is a problem, but I'm concerned about being able to get in and out to get to my house. As I said earlier, I came through about 7 o'clock last night, and I could barely get through because there were cars parked on both sides of the street. This is a typically narrow residential street. It can't handle that extra traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vandiver.
Good evening, and thank you again for your time. At this time, I would actually like to...
Mic up, please. Thank you.
I would actually like to welcome and approve, from my standpoint, the development in question. Sometimes if you're not a squeaky wheel, you don't get grease. And I think with Mr. Path, Vine, and Mr. Mack, and the other members and departments, I think as a community, first I would like to ask my neighbors to please don't shoot me in the back for breaking away from this at this point. But I really think that together with these different skill sets that we all have, we can mash this together. And I believe that, we could work out an alleyway, a parking way. As long as we get those trees put back, we got to find a way to develop, but we have to find a way to develop responsibly. And I think we're on the right path. So I'm for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Anyone else?
I'm still opposed for all the same reasons, but I'm going on public record for it. Mr. Mark, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but thank you so much. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Program, appreciate your comments. I respectfully disagree. I don't know if I think if we all sat and thought adding any amount of concrete, that would to say if you were to concrete everything north of Lamar, it would definitely increase the flow into these tributaries. So to say that adding more concrete does not do that, I can't agree with that statement, but it would be a matter of the containment on the property. I think for the comments from Mr. Path and the concern stating that they'll address such, I expect that will take place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Reisinger is going to be my neighbor for a long time, just like Linda has been my neighbor for a long time. And we get along. We want the best for that neighborhood. I just punched him and asked him if he puts that driveway down the middle of the property and it goes into Cherry Street, where does the water go? It goes into Cherry Street, down to the ditch, cross Wade Park, cross Bell's, all those apartments stuffed in there behind Bell's, and into his back door. And my contention is, before he pours his driveway that way, there could be 1 or 2 retention ponds put between this catechism of that ditch and Wade Park. Wade Park was meant to be a pool. My son took me fishing on my 76th birthday in McKinney, and we went to a beautiful fish pond there in the central city, and you could tell that they put it there to handle the water. And at the end of Wade Park, we could put some kind of pond or fish pond or whatever to handle a lot of water, just like Greenbrier did. You guys did great on that Greenbrier apartment complex. It was built over there where the road turns to go to the loop by the church, and it was built in a hole. It was built in the bottom of place that we always hunted, the boys hunted coons in there. It was really low. They moved the size of a huge pond back to the place where their apartments were. They built their apartments up. I noticed today on the ones that are over on that side, they've got hoses coming out of the drainage off the roof, and they're draining it into that huge pond that's probably 12 foot deep, and I don't know how big. That is planning. That is retention. That's successful use of that property that was just a swamp. That's all it was a swamp. It has a big ditch that goes behind it. That ditch goes to Wade Park, but that Greenbrier does not.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Just let's plan. And let's do it quickly.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'll now close the public hearing. Any discussion? I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 21, discuss and act on the appointment of a city council liaison to serve on the Paris Development Code Planning and Zoning Subcommittee. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. At its meeting held on November 6th, the Planning and Zoning Commission established a subcommittee in order to look at developing a uniform code of regulations to improve consistency, the way that we administer development within our community. What this will do for us, we believe, is allow for everything to be combined into a singular document, a one-stop place to shop, and again, the ability for us to develop and improve consistency in our requirements and the process in which we use to address development. So why are we doing this? Well, our plan that we've adopted calls for us to address some of the shortcomings in our regulations, and so we are further implementing our comprehensive plan as this portion of the development cycle allows us to update our regulations and to streamline them and address any places that we have shortcomings. So again, this was formed. The Planning and Zoning Commission appointed 2 of its members to this subcommittee, and I'm developing this as a steering committee. We want to make sure that this becomes a very open and dynamic process whereby we have an opportunity to examine our regulations and to continue to improve things and the services that we provide to our developers and our citizens within our community. The first meeting has been scheduled for March the 2nd. That's this Thursday. We look to have an appointment from the council this evening so that we can set the pace for who else we invite to the table. We want to cast a net, allowing opportunities for input from various members of the community from various disciplines, and that we have a productive process. We expect that based on a schedule that's been preliminarily laid out, that we can work through this during the course of the summer, and by about the end of the summer, we should have the documents completed and ready for the approval process. And so again, we're requesting that the council tonight appoint 2 or 3 at the most members to this subcommittee, and would appreciate your doing so this evening.
Thank you. I commend you for taking on this project. Are there any council members who wish to serve on this subcommittee? Councilman okay, I see 3. Councilmember Pilgrim, Pankaj, and Mayor Pro Tem Hughes. Do I hear a motion to appoint Councilmember Pilgrim, Pankaj, and Mayor Pro Tem Hughes? And a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 22, receive the Paris Economic Development Corporation 2022 Annual Report. PEDC Executive Director Maureen Hammond you have a presentation, please? Thank you for waiting.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm here tonight to present our 2022 annual report. That is pursuant to our bylaws. We are to present an annual report by March 1st annually. So very pleased to be here. I will do my best to run through this quickly. As you know, we are the economic development arm for Paris and Lamar County. As such, we have three core areas of activity. So number one, our priority, helping our existing businesses grow and thrive. Number two, business attraction, so recruiting new business and industry to the community. And number three, fostering an environment that encourages entrepreneurship. Before I hit those areas, I would like to take a moment to showcase what some of my board members are doing and the committees. I have the best board of directors. They are very selfless with their time, giving much more time than I think we deserve. On the Land Committee, I have Josh Bray, Curtis Finley, Mark Homer. They have continued, we have worked as a group to continue surveying what the organization's needs are. We are hoping to close this first quarter on a 123-acre site. We have found it is a large site that does not have rail. This was important because we do have two large sites in inventory today. The 200-acre site we purchased about a year and a half ago, and then the Gene Stallings Business Park. Both of those sites are rail served. And so if we have a client that needs 150 acres or 125, but doesn't need rail, we are submitting those sites. And so we really needed a large site to market that was not rail served so we can preserve those rail served sites. In the marketing committee, Dr. Hashmi, Stephen Terrell, and Eric Roddy. This group has spent countless hours on the branding development. They have participated on the steering committee, creative process, and so I can't thank them enough for their participation in the brand, which is coming to completion, and we're working with Grayson on the implementation. We do also have a new website underway, which I'm thrilled about. We engaged Dead Cat to handle that and really coincide with the new brand, and we are continuing to improve our social media presence. And then last, we have a policy review committee. You'll recall last year they evaluated and presented bylaw amendments to the board and to council, and you all approved the amended bylaws in July. This year, we plan to resume evaluation of our policies and procedure manual. In business attraction, we received 75 requests for proposals. Most of those come directly from the governor's office. We were eligible to submit on 31. Of those 31, we have 15 open today, 16 closed, so 14 we didn't make the short list, and we won 2, which I will talk about now. You may recall in July of last year, we announced Tryson Tarps. They were a Canadian-based firm looking for a location in Lamar County to support our growing trailer industry. They identified a site on FM 137 and have built a facility west of Kimberly-Clark. They anticipate creating 20 new jobs over the next 5 years. And then, of course, in September, we announced Lion's Head Tire and Wheel. They manufacture and distribute tire and wheel assembly parts, component parts for primarily RVs and other trailers. They will construct a new 120,000 square foot facility this year, hopefully within the next 90 days, if not sooner. That facility will be on 20 acres that the PEDC conveyed in our Northwest Industrial Park. They anticipate creating 40 new jobs and have $20 million in new capital investment to the city and county. In business retention and expansion, in March, we announced Blossom Aerospace. They were acquired by Cross Lake Aerospace, and so we worked with him to ensure that they knew how much we wanted them to stay in Lamar County. That retained 30 jobs, and they anticipate creating up to 70 new jobs over the next 5 years, and have already invested $3 million in new equipment. We also continued outreach to our existing businesses. That was through our formal site visitation program or our board liaison program. Those were in conjunction with board members as well as council, so appreciate all of you supporting us through our existing industry program. In addition to working on projects, we also had an opportunity to celebrate some milestones with our industry. Very honored to participate in Hutamaki's 50-year anniversary. We also attended and participated in American Spiral Weld's grand opening. Also were able to hear an update on where they are in terms of new FTEs, and to date, they have created 140 new jobs. I believe that the initial estimate was starting at 60, and so they have more than exceeded their goals. So really proud to participate in that grand opening. And then at the annual chamber banquet, we presented Printworks with our Industry of the Year award. In the last 2.5 years, Printworks has grown from 50 employees to 100 employees, expanded their footprint. Stephen has built a new headquarter facility and expanded his manufacturing and distribution. So he's exporting product across the country, and so it's exciting to see a business that started in someone's garage grow to 100 employees. So this was a very well-deserved recognition. We also worked with Paris Junior College and Workforce Solutions to support the employees that were impacted by Skinner's closure. So we secured 13 primary employers. There were about 100 people in attendance. It shows that there are 35 reported hires. I expect that that number is higher. Those are just the companies that let us know that they had hired. So we were very pleased with the turnout and the response from our employers, and that those employees impacted were able to find other opportunities. A few other notable highlights. We revised and approved our 2-year plan of work, which you all accepted in July of last year. We've also submitted on an EDA grant for infrastructure improvements in the Northwest Industrial Park, hoping to hear something very soon from EDA on that. We advocated for and will financially support the city in a housing study, very anxious to see that through. And then you all reappointed Eric Roddy and Stephen Terrell to the board, so we appreciate that. So this is what we usually look at, right, to measure how we're doing. In 2022, the projects I've discussed, our efforts supported 160 jobs. $26 million in new capital investment will come to Paris and Lamar County. The annual payroll will be about $6.6 million. And that will generate about $34 million annually in total economic impact when you look at direct, indirect, revenues, output, payroll, taxes. But I thought it would be interesting to look back 2.5 years when I started, and most of my board came on. So since 2020, our efforts have supported 845 jobs. I didn't realize how big that number was until I put the slide together this afternoon, and really proud of what the organization has accomplished in 2.5 years. And we could not have done that without your support. And so I hope that you feel as good as I do about seeing this slide and that number. That's a big deal. Really proud of that. And it took all of us to produce that number. So thank you for your support and everything you all do to help us be successful. $92 million in capital investment, that's huge. $38 million in annual payroll. $216 million in annual total economic impact. $216 million. 2.5 years. That's phenomenal. And last, I just wanted to hit some trends. Nothing earth-shattering in these trends, but there are lots of things that we look at as an economic development corporation to see how we are doing and faring with other communities. As you can see, building permits, commercial and residential, are kind of all over the place, so it's really hard to see any trends. You can see that commercial has doubled, from 11 to 21, but there was a high in 2017, right, of 27. So we'll just keep looking at that, and hopefully we will start seeing some pretty consistent increases there, as well as residential. I suspect with the 5 and 5 program and some of the other developments happening, I expect that will trend upward. And we appreciate everything you all are doing with the housing study, the 5 and 5. Those things are so important to retaining and attracting talent. Revenue trends, I would say that this is pretty staggering. You can see how we have trended to increase. We had a record year last year and the year before, and so hope to see that continue. And what does that mean to the EDC? We get a quarter cent, so we've gone from 1.2 million to 1.8 million. It's about 10 years, so that has allowed us to do more. And we hope that our efforts are a part of that growth as well. This shows the total job growth over a 5-year period. Really encouraged to see this slide as well. You can see that in a 5-year period, we've had 6% growth in jobs, so 1,400 new jobs, net jobs to this community. Believe we have outpaced all of our, and I say our competitors. If you look at the population and some of the sizes, it's not what I would say a comparable community, but these are the communities that we compete with on a pretty regular basis. So it looks like Bonham came out at 8%, but we matched Sherman, Denison, the Grayson County with a 6% growth. And then you can see where Gregg County had loss, and as did Bowie. So, and if you look at the sales tax, the far right column, you can see that we receive a 0.25%, whereas many of our communities we're competing with get a 0.5 cent. Average wage continues to grow. You can see it was ranging around 45,000, and that was a pretty substantial increase to almost 49,000. I believe that's due. A lot of people, we've all been competing. Most of our employers have been competing for people, and that's not unique to Paris or Lamar County. So we have seen wages go up. Unemployment rates hovering around 4 to 5%, which is comparable to pre-COVID levels. So a lot of positive data, stable population, hope to see that number really grow. We need more homes to see some growth there. We've had substantial growth in sales tax. consistent increase in average wages, steady growth in jobs, labor force, again, 845 jobs supported since 2021. Growth in tourism, really exciting to see what the Chamber's doing with these 903 Sunset series of concerts. Daryl Felsberg just had the comedy festival. People are coming in from all over, so that's really exciting to see. And Susie Harper, Mayor, I know you were part of that. What has happened downtown has been incredible. The lighting, it matters. From a quality of life perspective, I can't begin to tell you how much that impacts our ability to show a company what we have here, because when they're coming and looking, they want to know if they are going to be able to recruit new employees and keep them here. So quality of life is important. And the lighting, Susie, Mayor, I don't know how you all accomplished that, but I think it happened like in less than 90 days, so pretty incredible. And then last but not least, I know you all are have been seeing the numbers on the 5 and 5 and other housing initiatives, so hope to see substantial growth in that over the next few years. So our priorities this year, we're going to continue our core activities in recruitment, business retention and expansion, and startups. We plan to really focus on implementation of the new brand and messaging, so we will be updating our creative assets, a website, social media, and obviously working jointly with Grayson and the city and Paul Allen and the Chamber. We're going to look for targeted marketing opportunities. In attraction, we'll continue to promote, we'll promote the new brand, but continue to work with Team Texas, Encore, and other partners. On events, in business retention and expansion, we'll continue our site visitation program and the board liaison program. Again, looking forward to supporting the city in a housing study. And right now, we're pretty busy. We have 3 projects in negotiations. I'm really excited about this year and appreciate all the support you've given us. Happy to answer any questions before I fall asleep.
Great job.
Just kudos to you and your board. You look at that 845 jobs, the impact of that. Imagine the negative impact if we lost Kimberly Clark or we lost Campbell Soup. It would be devastating, and we've been managed to retain or have new jobs of that number. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Well done.
Thank you.
Item number 23, discuss and take possible action regarding a proposal to enter into a contract with solid waste specialists to prepare an RFP for outsourcing the collection of residential and commercial garbage and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents. Staff?
It's hard to follow up that item with item on sanitation and trash pickup, but I will do my best. So, little history here for the City Council, as you see in your agenda memo there. Back in May 23rd this last year, we met to give a situational update on the status of sanitation department for the city. At that time, we were struggling significantly to staff our department. We were, of course, doing twice-a-week pickup. It required about 16 positions to man the trucks to do that. We were averaging 3 or 4 in the department at that time, so we were constantly pulling aside 7, 8, 9, 12 or so, as much as we can pull from street, parks, water, sewer, and traffic and CIP every single day in order to man the trucks. And that was we couldn't, that had been going on for almost a year by that point, and so it was unsustainable. We were losing employees, low morale. People weren't wanting to work anymore. It was just very difficult. So with that, we came to the City Council on the 23rd to discuss the issue. City Council agreed with our recommendation to go once a week. That allows us to cut our staffing needs in half. Instead of requiring about 16, we only needed about 8 in order to man the trucks each day. A little more manageable given our numbers for sanitation employees. Still not quite hitting that after that part there. So we did do a pay increase in order to get more competitive with our local competition. That has helped tremendously. We've actually been able to staff our department since that point. Now we're getting ready to head into the hot months of the year, and I know from personal experience that's a very challenging time to be on the back of a truck. And so but at this point, we've had success since that time, last summer there. But at the May 23rd City Council meeting, the council asked that we look at privatization or outsourcing, however you want to call that, of the service. We look at the whole spectrum of departments that cities operate. There are some that we have to do for sure because there's no money. I mean, no one will maintain streets. No one will maintain parks. But there are some services that there are entities out there that do that kind of service, sanitation being one of those. And so with that, we set out over the last several months to research that issue. We presented to you back in November 14th what we had learned at that point. We identified a firm, Solid Waste Specialist, SWS acronym there, who does RFP services to help us look at outsourcing. And so Mr. Lantrip presented to you at the January 23rd meeting. With that, City Council asked that we bring back to you a proposal for him in a contract form to proceed with RFP services through his company. You have that before you tonight. I'd just like to stress, as he stressed at the meeting there, this agreement is written to include residential and commercial. As you know, we do not provide commercial for the city. We provide residential only. And so his recommendation was if we were to want to look at outsourcing this via a bid process, in order to attract multiple competition, which again, we would want the best price for our citizens, and the best way to do that is through competition. He recommended that we put out residential and commercial on the bid there. So that is how the RFP, that is how the agreement tonight is written before you. It's about a 6 to 10 month process. As I discussed in my memo here, the process consists of basically in general data collection about our number of homes, number of pickups, and so forth in the community. We'd have an RFP kickoff workshop. If we proceed, I would encourage that 2 or 3 of our city council take part in that kickoff. You can represent your constituents and the fellow council to help express concerns. He wants to hear what do you want to see? What are your goals? Do you want to see once a week, twice a week, carts, no carts? What do you want to see? These kind of things. And so we can write this into the RFP, what we want to see in here. So he wants to have a kickoff workshop to establish the goals for this process here. So again, if we proceed tonight with the services, I would ask that 2 or 3 of you volunteer to be on that kickoff workshop process. That would then lead on to Mr. Lantrip developing the contract and RFP. We would review all that before issuing it, make sure it includes what we want to see in it. The nice thing is by issuing a contract up front, you tell the contractors what you expect in the service. It's not that way you can get more apples to apples when you get the bid product back. You can see what the services are going to cost to provide the same service. Then we would issue the RFPs, we'd receive them, we would review them, and then we'd give a presentation to the council. Again, about a 6 to 10 month process to do all that. One of the items that was discussed at the last time we discussed this on January 23rd was if we again proceed with commercial, how do we address our current provider in town? There's ways through that, looking at giving a good lengthy notice period in order to obviously assuming this entity was not the one who won it. Giving them a good lengthy notice period in order to we are now transitioning to this other entity with. So again, assuming that they were not to win. Let's see here. In your exhibit A of the agreement, it goes in more detail for the whole contract and RFP. You had asked at the last meeting, at what point can you still stop and not move forward? Again, you can always cancel even up to the point of reviewing bids. You can always throw all the bids out. I would advise, though, obviously, this is a good faith process. If we were to proceed and we were to issue bids, I would advise that we only reject the bids for reasons because of the bids themselves. They were too high or they didn't hit the points we wanted. So if we are looking to outsource and move forward, we proceed with the process and go through the bid process and not end it at that point, if that makes sense, if you saw my memo here. And so again, I would state that if there's any continued hesitancy about outsourcing, we should consider tabling tonight and not move forward. But if the council still wants to proceed, the contract's in front of you, we're ready to go. It's a good contract. I do believe he would do an excellent job for us. We've vetted him through multiple communities. He knows his stuff. As we discussed in the contract, it's about $39,940. Once we award a contract to a contractor, the contract would state that they reimburse us that expense for the consultation services. So other than obviously our staff time and so forth, the $39,940 would be reimbursed to the city upon award of a contract to a contractor. Looking at our budget overall, the impact if we were to outsource, obviously we would no longer have a sanitation department, and so the revenue and expense would go away. We have written into the contract to specifically address our employees. We do have a number of employees who are staffed in the sanitation department who are both full-time as well as RPM employees. RPM would address their employees, but as for our employees, we would address that in the contract, whether it's they stay with us and we find another home for them, or they're allowed to go to the next contractor. So that's addressed in the proposal here. Another piece of this, the sanitation department, even though we've not raised rates in 10 plus years, we are still able to contribute some to the general fund. We have eaten away at that for the last number of years. In order to keep rates from raising. Right now, this current fiscal year, we have $210,000 transferring to the general fund to support street maintenance and things that the trash trucks cost to the roads. We would be looking at a franchise fee if we were to proceed with a company. So some compensation to us for use of the roadways. And so that would take the place of our existing transfer. I don't know exact amounts just yet. That's still to be determined, but that part would be worked out in the contract. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions in regards to the contract. Again, the options we have here is to approve working with solid waste specialists to move forward with designing an RFP and a contract, again, through the steps we discussed. Otherwise, we can always reject it and continue as is. Or we can table this and allow you some more time to think about it and consider this decision here. So again, I would encourage you that if we were to approve the contract, we move forward with the bid process in good faith and issuing the bids there. And then again, only rejecting those bids for reason because of the bids themselves. So that's just my guidance to you as your city manager. So.
Thank you, Mr. Path. Any discussion?
I had a quick question. So, couple concerns that I have. I understand we're in a really questionable time on this situation, but few things that I really want to discuss in regards. I know there's going to be a committee that's formed on that. That's wonderful. But something that I really wanted to ask, I was hoping Mr. Lintrop would be here this evening to answer these questions. What I'm worried about is if we do residential and commercial, that commercial aspect of it is going to subsidize the residential, right? And so we're going to see an increase on the commercial aspect of it and to decrease the cost of the residential fee. So I feel like to a certain degree, and then someone had mentioned, why not just look at the commercial aspect of it? Well, one, it doesn't make sense to look at it from the commercial aspect of it because we're trying to figure out the residential portion, correct? So what I really want to see is, and why I wanted to ask Mr. Lintrop this in person is, I want to see if it's possible. Are we able to do just residential only and residential and commercial exclusive? Because at that point, we can really put the numbers together and see, hey, how much are we actually saving here for our citizens? Rather than putting, you know what I mean, putting our commercial stakeholders.
I can answer one of those questions for you. So whenever he was here, he spoke, and this is, the residential side is very, very thin margin as far as a commercial trash collector and recycler / landfill. And like he said, if we only did the residential, we just took that entity and said, here, bid it out. He point blank said, the local company here is going to be the only bid you're going to have because there's no money in transporting it, because you're either going to go to the dump here or you're going to go to a transfer station similar to what this company has, like in Pittsburgh or Mount Pleasant area where they collect those cities down there. They have a transfer station that brings it to the dump. So the commercial is the higher margin stuff because there's more capacity, there's more tons. And so, of course, Mr. Bray, who's on the EDC, used to own the company we're talking about here. He's out now. He's not anything to do with it. Me and him have talked extensively about it, and I've asked him, I said, just making sure I understand, the residential side. He goes, yeah, I mean, if we go out and do the job, we're not going to go bid just the resi side of it on a city this size because of the amount of equipment. And I mean, literally, it's like the guy said, they're going to buy brand new equipment every 5 years. Whenever that contract comes up, they're going to have, and those local companies have all gone to pretty much where they're trading in their trash trucks every 3 years just for mainly employee retention, also too for hazardous and different mechanical and maintenance abilities. But Mr. Lantrip explained that also too, new dumpsters, new trash, and you can negotiate all those different things through the process. And that's one of those things that committee will go through and say, what is as parish, what do we want? Well, obviously the big deal was going from 2 days to 1 day. Is that something we want to go back to? Because there's some expense there. More equipment, more people, more stuff. But then you're going to also say, okay, everybody want new trash dumpsters, or a lot of people own their own trash dumpsters now, residential wise. So do you employ that, or do they come in and they all have blue dumpsters that go with that company and so on? So there's like all these different variables that go with it. As far as the equipment side of it, the concern, and I've expressed this with a few of my constituents and told them, I said, listen, we run 5 trash trucks, more likely 3 full-time. Is that kind of what we talked about last time? We had 5, but we kind of ran 3 was our full-time.
Right now, we're running about 3 or 4 a day. Roughly.
So 3 to 5 trash trucks, and we're having to replace them. We're probably not replacing them but every 10 years, but realistically, if we went to a basis of what they're competitively doing to try to compete with the Waste Managements of the world, I'm picking on them tonight, but also too, we're allowing a 40-hour work week. Those guys are allowing a 55-hour week is what a lot of those guys offer. So they're able to pay more. Their benefits are better. They're a bigger company. They have buying power when it comes to buying trucks, trash cans, all the needed equipment, plus they own the dumps. So, us as a city competing with that. And then also, too, we're contractually going to be obligated with them. So if they have to have trash dumpsters, the trash trucks, the different things, they're contractually to do that. They're in that business. So I think it's a no-brainer. It's should have been done a long time ago. We don't cash flow on the trash side. It's hard to keep employees. It's hard to keep nice equipment. We've been continually going through having to hire temp services. We've actually had an accident, on-site accident. That's a safety issue too. They run a better safety program. That's what they do, and it goes back to, we're really good at a few things, but we can't be really good at everything. So, and rates are a concern, and I heard rates just a second ago, but rates are either going to have to go up to subsidize the cost that we have today, which I think we're going to be substantially higher because we can't compete with somebody that's got 25,000 employees and the buying power. They go buy 2,000 trash trucks at a time directly from the manufacturer, where we're buying them from the dealership and trying to buy used, trying to buy stuff and patch it together, and the cost is not even relative. So we're going to have to subsidize it through charging people more for trash and keep doing it ourselves, or we hire a service that can do it better, more efficiently, safer, and with better equipment. And it also makes it's going to make our streets and towns and everything look a little better too. And you got nice new equipment running around, more fuel efficiency. You want to get into the environmental and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's a whole slew of onslaught that comes with privatizing, and I'm obviously for it.
I think another important cost saver is that we're not paying those employees vacation, insurance and retirement benefits, and then if they're retired and live 20 to 30 years after retirement, we're paying into their retirement. So I just feel like it's a cost saver for our citizens.
Well, and the plan would be to keep employees who don't want to transition over to that department, so that's our intent. We have plenty of vacancies.
How many
Yes,
vacancies
they would
was
be
it?
in Public Works.
But otherwise.
Somewhere else.
But otherwise, yes, there would be, in theory, a reduction in staff numbers should they exit and choose to go to the other department or exit altogether. So it'd be up to them.
But as it is now, if we keep the sanitation department, and then we're able finally maybe to bring employee levels up in streets, all of Public Works, then we've grown government, you know.
How many vacancies roughly do we have Public Works or in that side of, I know it's several, just roughly.
I don't have an exact number, but I believe on my Public Works side, I'm down to probably 20 employees altogether. Now we have picked up a few, but I've lost, but I think altogether I'm down to about 20.
I want to commend Mr. Smith and Mr. Path for having thrown trash for half a day, all day.
We went all day, a couple times actually.
But I cannot do what our guys do. So they do it every day. I don't hold a candle to that.
Yeah.
So
It's a tough job. It really is.
You know, one of the reasons why I side with you, Mr. Pilgrim, is, you know, seeing the equipment that we have and the age of the equipment and keeping up with the equipment, I'm really nervous about that. And I think there was a question earlier in regards to what do we do with the assets that we currently have. And I think we've discussed this before. Do we auction it off? We sell it off?
yeah,
like that?
I was looking for Mr. Anderson. He's oh, there he is. Yep. Can you address the auction process, Gene? The surplus property.
We use an auction firm over in the Dallas area that have traditionally gotten 3 or 4 times as much money as when we auctioned them locally. And each individual piece of equipment's potentially going to bring a different price depending on, you know, what its state is and what its problems are. But we've never failed to find somebody that would buy it. I mean, we've had some really awful pieces of equipment that they've managed to sell, you know, from people who buy that stuff. They can fix it up somewhat themselves and reuse it. I couldn't give you an exact dollar for the last trash truck we sold, though. I can look that up, but I don't know off the top of my head.
And what we do with the funds from the auction?
Those funds normally go in, I believe it's the equipment replacement fund. We have an equipment replacement fund. It's not a large fund, but it's used, you know, to buy equipment from time to time, smaller equipment that we can afford.
Yeah, it's not enough to replace our fleet because obviously the value of a new truck versus the value of a 10-year-old truck. But yeah, we do have those funds set aside for just minor HVAC repairs, things that we didn't plan for, but we can't do without for years. I know one year, we're actually working on the fire alarm system at the depot right now with using those funds.
Yeah.
Any other questions
Thank you.
or discussion? I'll hear a motion.
Make a motion to move forward with solid waste specialists to prepare an RFP for outsourcing the collection of residential and commercial garbage in the city of Paris.
And a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 24, discuss and act on an ordinance declaring unopposed candidates in the City Council District 4 and 5 for the May 6, 2023 general election be elected to office and determining that no general election be held in Districts 4 and 5. Staff?
Mihir Pankaj is the unopposed candidate in District 4. Rebecca Norman's unopposed in District 5, and we're asking you to approve an ordinance tonight canceling those elections in Districts 4 and 5 and declaring the unopposed candidates as elected to the office pursuant to the state election code.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? I'll hear a motion.
So move.
And a second? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 25, discuss and act on an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 6.02, Section 6.02.004, Seniority Pay of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paris, Texas, relating to seniority pay in the fire department. Chief, you have a presentation.
Just a short one, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. We're coming before you tonight just for it's basically a housekeeping issue. When the council implemented the comparable pay study in the previous budget years, you streamlined the seniority pay across all ranks, with each rank having the same number of steps and each step being the same dollar amount. These are based on years of service in the current rank as opposed to service within the total department. Phase 1 of these steps was approved in the 2021 to 2022 budget, with the second and final phase being approved in this current budget. This change was effective October 1, 2022, and civil service requires that this change be put in place through ordinance. And that's what we're bringing before you tonight, is just to ask that that be put into place through ordinance. There's no additional cost incurred by this because it was already approved in the budget.
Thank you. Any questions of the chief? I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 26.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Introduction of Kimmy Snowden, the city's new Community Outreach Coordinator for the Paris Police Department. Chief Salter, introduce him.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. In the last budget cycle, we requested and y'all approved a new position for the police department that we call our Community Outreach Coordinator. We took since the budget passed, we've created a job description, advertised, interviewed applicants, and we've selected Mr. Kimmy Snowden for that position. I'm here tonight to introduce you to him, but I'd like to just quickly tell you about the position. This will only take about 30 minutes. This position served as a liaison between the police department and the community and promotes opportunities to interact in a constructive manner. A critical component of the position's outreach position includes promoting and increasing a number of positive interactions between police officers and the community. And an introduction to Mr. Snowden. Mr. Kimmy Snowden is the seventh son of Joel and Dorothy Snowden and was raised in Paris. He joined the Army in 1989 and was honorably discharged in April of '89 after sustaining an injury. He attended Paris Junior College, Texas A&M Commerce, and Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas, where he collectively received a Texas Educator Certificate, a Bachelor of Science in Instructional Training and Design, and a Master's degree in Education Administration. Mr. Snowden is a retired educator and has taught K through 12 over the past 23 years, having taught science and business courses, coached football and track in Paris schools, and the Dallas Metroplex. Mr. Snowden is a husband, father of 3, grandfather to 4 granddaughters, and 5 grandsons. He is also the current senior pastor for the Evangelist Temple Church here in Paris and director of the Ministerial Alliance here in Paris and board member to the Food Pantry. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Snowden.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. There's not much for me to say except it's about ready to get started. And I'll just say that I've communicated right so far with a couple of different, like DISD, Dallas Independent So I'm still talking school, okay? But the Dallas Police Department, because they have a community liaison position up there for outreach, as well as a Sherman, because we want to kind of get a few things and see how can we connect some things together. And just to try to get to know the police side of it as best as possible before we can get out here in the community. And then I'm going to try to talk to every community leader that's possible, and so that we can look at the demographics and build hopefully a couple of groups that deal with the demographics in Paris, so we can actually find out what's really going on and try to do the best that we can in bridging that gap. It's the best I can say for now.
Thank you. I think I speak on the behalf of the council and staff. We're welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. All right.
Item number 27, convene into executive session pursuant to Section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code. 1, to discuss or deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the governmental body has received from a business prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the territory of the governmental body and with which the governmental body is conducting economic development negotiations. Or 2, to deliberate the offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect described by subdivision 1 as follows: Project Red Maple, Project Clydesdale. The time is 8:32 p.m. and the city council is convening into executive session. It's not here.
And I said, don't do that, don't call her again, so I'm just letting you.
The time is 9:15 PM and City Council is now in open session. As discussed in executive session, I will hear a motion to approve the performance agreement with Red Maple.
I'll make a motion to accept as written the performance agreement with Project Red Maple. Can we wait on Linda?
I have a motion and a second.
Second?
Should we wait for the vote? There she is. There she is. We have a motion and a second to approve the performance agreement with Red Maple as discussed in executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 29, consider and approve future events for city council and/or city staff pursuant to resolution number 2004-081. I would like to put on there, discuss a landscape ordinance for residences requiring number of trees, plantings, and grass. Anybody else? All right. Item number 30, I'll hear a motion and a second for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor, say 7-0.
Aye.